You there, the poor girl in the back. Come up here. Now. Marcus Blackwell's voice sliced through the theater. 3,000 guests turned. 5 million watched live. Maya Johnson was 11. Her hands trembled. He grabbed her shoulder, dragged her into the spotlight, leaned close. His mic was off. Hers wasn't. Fail quietly, kid. The audience held its breath. What she did next didn't just prove him wrong. It ended everything he'd built on lies. For hours earlier, Maya had stood in that same theater with her stomach in knots. She lived in the East Side projects with her mother and 2 younger brothers. Their apartment had 3 rooms. The hot water worked sometimes. The heat worked less. In winter, they slept in the living room together, blankets piled high, because that was the only room the radiator reached. Her mother, Denise, was a home health aide. She worked 12-hour shifts caring for elderly patients across the city. Coming home with swollen feet and a smile she forced for her children. Some months they had enough. Most months they didn't. Maya had learned early what phrases meant trouble. We'll see meant no. Next month meant maybe never. I'm not hungry, from her mother's mouth, meant there wasn't enough food for everyone. But they had something money couldn't measure. Every Sunday morning, Maya stood in the second row of Greater Hope Baptist Church, singing with the choir. She'd started at 5, a tiny girl with a voice too big for her body. By 7, she was leading hymns. By 9, the choir director, Ms. Patterson, had pulled her mother aside after service. Your daughter has perfect pitch, Ms. Patterson said. Denise had blinked. What does that mean? It means she can identify any musical note just by hearing it. No reference needed. 1 in 10,000 people can do this. Maybe fewer. Ms. Patterson paused. She hears things the rest of us can't. Frequencies. Harmonics. She knows when something is real and when it's not. Her mother had smiled, tired but proud. What do we do with that? Vocal training. Real training. Berkeley. Juilliard. Manhattan School of Music. Ms. Patterson's voice dropped. Programs that cost more than most people make in a year. So Maya sang at church. She sang in the school choir at Eastside Elementary, where the music budget had been cut 4 years running, and they shared instruments with the middle school. She sang in her room at night, quietly, teaching herself runs from YouTube videos on a phone with a cracked screen. Her range was unusual. D3 chest voice to G6 whistle register. Those impossibly high notes that sounded like crystal bells, like something not quite human. She didn't know this was rare. She didn't know most trained professionals couldn't do what she did naturally. She just knew that when she sang, something broken inside her felt whole. When the letter arrived saying Eastside Elementary had been selected for Marcus Blackwell's annual charity gala, the whole school erupted. 20 choir students would perform as background vocals at the Paramount Theater. Real stage. National television. 5 million viewers. Maya's mother bought her a new white blouse from the thrift store. Tags still attached until that morning, just in case they needed to return it. Marcus Blackwell was more than famous. He was an institution. 22 years in the industry. 6 Grammy Awards. 3 platinum albums. His signature song, Rise Above, had become an anthem. That impossible high note at the end, the whistle register C6 that seemed to touch heaven, had made him a legend. But it was his charity work that made him beloved. The Marcus Blackwell Foundation had donated over $40 million to underprivileged schools. He built music programs. He funded scholarships. He posed for photographs with children who looked like they needed saving, and the press called him generous, authentic, a voice for the voiceless. Eastside Elementary had received funding from his foundation 3 years ago. New instruments, sheet music, a piano that actually stayed in tune. Maya had grown up believing Marcus Blackwell was one of the good ones. That belief lasted until soundcheck. The choir had been instructed to wait backstage, silent, while Marcus rehearsed. But Maya had wandered toward the wings, curious, wanting to see the massive stage, the professional setup, the lights she'd only ever seen on television. And she'd heard him rehearsing Rise Above. His voice was good, trained, polished, expensive sounding. He moved through the verses with the confidence of someone who'd performed them 1,000 times. But when he reached the bridge, when the melody climbed toward that legendary high note, something happened. His voice cracked, badly. The sound splintered around a 5, a full step and a half below where it should have been. He stopped, cursed, snapped at his sound engineer. Bring the enhancement up on that section. Full support. I need it seamless. The engineer adjusted something on the board. Marcus sang the section again. This time the note was perfect. Too perfect. Maya froze. Her gift, that 1 in 10,000 ability Miss Patterson had described, had never felt like a curse before. But in that moment, it showed her something she couldn't unsee. The note didn't sound like it was coming from his throat. It sounded like it was coming from the speakers. There was a shimmer to it, a digital quality, the way a note sits on top of music instead of inside it. That perfect C6 wasn't Marcus Blackwell. It was a recording. Maya had gone back to the choir risers and said nothing. Who would believe an 11-year-old girl from the projects over a man with 6 Grammys and a foundation that had helped her own school? But now, standing under the spotlight with his hand gripping her shoulder, with 5 million people watching and his whispered threat still ringing in her ears, Maya understood something else. He knew she'd heard him. He'd seen her in the wings. This wasn't about giving her a moment to shine. This was about making sure no one would ever believe her if she told the truth. The band started playing. The opening chords of Rise Above filled the theater like a wave, washing over Maya where she stood frozen in the spotlight. Marcus stepped back, arms spread wide, presenting her to the audience like a gift. "Let's see what our young scholarship student can do," he announced. His voice was warm for the cameras. His eyes were ice. The full bridge, including the high note. "Whenever you're ready, sweetheart." Maya's throat tightened. Her hands trembled at her sides. 3,000 people stared at her. 5 million more watched through screens across the country. And somewhere in a hospital break room, her mother was probably watching too. Phone pressed to her ear, heart full of hope. The bridge of Rise Above was legendary. It climbed through impossible intervals, building toward that whistle register C6 that had defined Marcus Blackwell's career. Professional singers with decades of training attempted it and failed. Vocal coaches used it as an example of near-superhuman ability. And he was asking an 11-year-old girl in a thrift store blouse to perform it cold. No warm-up, no preparation, no mercy. She understood now. This was the trap. If she tried and failed, and he expected her to fail, she would look foolish, overconfident, poor girl who didn't know her place. And if she ever tried to tell anyone what she'd heard at soundcheck, they would remember this moment. They would remember her cracking, struggling, falling short. Her failure would become his armor. The music swelled. The band waited for her entrance. "Stage fright?" Marcus asked, loud enough for the front rows to hear. Sympathetic chuckles rippled through the audience. "It's okay. This song is difficult. Nobody expects you to actually. I can sing it." The words left her mouth before she could stop them. Small, defiant, terrified. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Can you?" Maya nodded. Her heart slammed against her ribs. "Well then." He gestured toward the microphone stand. "By all means." She stepped forward. The spotlight followed her, burning hot against her skin. She could feel sweat forming at her temples, her palms slick with fear. But beneath the fear, something else stirred. Something that had been sleeping her whole life, waiting for this moment. Anger. Not hot, explosive anger. Something colder, quieter. The anger of a girl who had watched her mother work herself to exhaustion. The anger of a child who had been told, in 1,000 small ways, that she didn't matter. That her voice didn't matter. That girls like her should be grateful for whatever scraps they received. She thought about soundcheck. She thought about the digital shimmer of that fake note floating through the speakers. She thought about 22 years of lies, wrapped in charity and good press. He had built an empire on a voice that wasn't his, and he wanted to use her to protect it. Maya looked at the band leader, then back at Marcus. The music was still playing, cycling through the intro, waiting for her to begin. Mr. Blackwell? He tilted his head, irritation flickering beneath his practiced smile. Yes. Before I sing, Maya said, can I ask you something? The audience murmured. This wasn't in the script. Children brought on stage were supposed to be nervous, grateful, compliant. They weren't supposed to ask questions. Marcus's smile tightened. Of course, sweetheart. What is it? Maya took a breath, the deepest breath of her life. Can you turn off the backing track? Silence crashed through the theater like a physical force. Marcus blinked. For a fraction of a second, so brief that most people missed it, something flickered across his face. Fear. Raw and unmistakable. Then the mask returned. I'm sorry. The backing track, Maya repeated. Her voice shook, but she forced herself to continue. The vocal enhancement. The recording that plays during the high note. Can you turn it off? Whispers erupted through the audience. Confused murmurs. Phones appeared in hands, recording. Marcus laughed. It was too loud. Too sharp. There's no backing track, he said, spreading his hands. This is live music. A live band. Everything you hear comes from this stage. That's not what I heard at soundcheck. The whispers became gasps. Marcus's expression hardened. He stepped toward her, lowering his voice. But not enough. The microphone caught every word. You need to be very careful, he said. Your school depends on my foundation's generosity. Your teachers, your classmates. Do you really want to jeopardize all of that because you're confused about how professional audio works? It was a threat, naked and direct. I can take everything away. Maya felt the weight of it. She thought about the new instruments at Eastside Elementary. The piano that finally stayed in tune. The music program that existed because of his money. She could stop now. Apologize. Blame nerves. Sing the song badly and disappear. But then she thought about her mother. About Ms. Patterson. About every person who had ever been told their truth didn't matter because they were small and poor and powerless. If there's no track, Maya said quietly, then you can prove it. Marcus stared at her. Prove it how? Sing the note yourself. She met his eyes without flinching. Right now. A cappella. No band. No speakers. Just your voice. She paused. If you can really hit that note, I'll apologize to everyone. I'll say I was wrong. The theater held its breath. But if you can't. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Marcus stared at her, the silence stretching like a wire pulled tight. You want me to audition? He gestured to the 3,000 people watching. For you? An 11-year-old child. Laughter rippled through the front rows. Nervous laughter. The kind that happens when people aren't sure if they're watching a joke or a disaster. It's not an audition, Maya said, holding her ground. It's just one note. Marcus shook his head, a pitying smile fixed on his face. He turned to the audience. Folks, I think our young guest is overwhelmed. The lights, the cameras, it happens. Maybe we should let her sit down and catch her breath. He signaled to security in the wings. 2 men in black suits started to move. That's enough, Marcus snapped. His voice lost its warmth. Security, please escort Miss Johnson off the stage. She's clearly distressed. The guards moved faster. The audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't how these galas usually went. The poor children were supposed to cry with gratitude, not defiance. I have perfect pitch, Maya shouted. Her voice cracked, desperate, pleading with the darkness beyond the lights. I can hear the frequencies. The guards were 10 feet away, 5 feet. The note on your album, she yelled, is 1046.5 hertz. That's a perfect C6. But what you sang at soundcheck, before they turned on the track, was 932 hertz. That's a sharp A-flat. It wasn't even close. The guards hesitated. The specificity of the numbers stopped them. You don't make up numbers like that when you're panicked. Marcus froze. His face went pale beneath the stage makeup. And it's not even your voice on the recording. Maya pressed on, her words tumbling out faster now, fueled by adrenaline. I checked the album credits online while we were waiting. Track 4. Additional vocals. Sophia Mitchell. Nobody looks at the small print, but it's there. A hush fell over the theater. Not confusion this time. Shock. Someone in the balcony shouted, "Is that true?" Marcus stepped toward her, abandoning the pretense of kindness. "Turn off her mic," he ordered the sound booth. "Cut it now." "Why?" Maya asked, shouting into the silence as her microphone went dead. But in a theater built for acoustics, her trained voice carried. "Why are you scared of the truth?" "No," Maya said. She stepped away from him, toward the edge of the stage. "I'm not overwhelmed. I'm telling the truth." "Because you're lying," Marcus roared, his own mic still live, his voice echoing too loudly. "You're a confused child looking for attention, and I won't let you ruin this night with your fantasies." He grabbed her arm. Not gently this time. His fingers dug into her bicep, hard enough to bruise. "We're done here. Actually," a voice boomed from the speakers. "She's right." Everyone turned. High above the stage, in the glass-walled sound booth, a man stood up. It was the sound engineer, the same one Maya had seen earlier. He was pale, sweating, but he was holding his talkback button down. "I've been running your boards for 5 years, Marcus," the engineer said. His voice filled the entire theater. "Every single show, every gala, every TV appearance. I trigger the track on the bridge. You've never sung that note live. Not once." The theater exploded. Gasps, shouts, people standing up, cameras flashing wildly. The live stream chat, visible on monitors near the stage, was a blur of movement. Marcus released Maya's arm as if she burned him. He stared up at the booth, betrayal twisting his face into something unrecognizable. "You're fired," he hissed. "You'll never work in this industry again." "I know," the engineer said, "but I'm tired of lying for you." Marcus spun back to the audience, desperate to regain control. "This is ridiculous. A disgruntled employee and a confused child? I have 6 Grammys. I've sold millions of records. You're going to believe them over me?" "I believe them." A woman stood up in the front row. It was Elena Ross, a legendary vocal coach and one of the judges for the evening's showcase. She walked to the edge of the stage, her face grim. "I've had my suspicions for years, Marcus," she said, her voice projecting clearly without a mic. "The timbre of that high note never matched your lower register. It's acoustically inconsistent. I thought maybe it was studio magic. But lip-syncing at a live charity event." She shook her head. "That's fraud." Next to her, David Chun, a producer who had worked with Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey, stood up too. "The girl cited specific frequencies," he said, looking at the audience. 1046.5 hertz. That is exactly C6. You can't fake that knowledge. She has the ear. He looked at Maya. "Do you really have perfect pitch, young lady?" Maya nodded, clutching her dead microphone. "Give her a working mic," Chun shouted at the booth. A moment later, Maya's microphone clicked back to life. "Yes, sir," she said. "I do." "Then show us," Chun said. He pointed to the band. "Play the bridge. Let her sing it." Marcus stepped forward. "Absolutely not. This is my stage. My song." "It's a charity event, Marcus," Elena Ross cut in. "If you have nothing to hide, let the girl sing. Or are you afraid an 11-year-old can do what you can't?" The challenge hung in the air. The audience began to clap. A slow, rhythmic chant started in the balcony and spread to the floor. "Let her sing. Let her sing. Let her sing." Marcus looked around. He was trapped. If he stopped her now, he looked guilty. If he let her sing and she failed, he might salvage the night. He stepped back, his face a mask of fury. "Fine," he spat. "Go ahead. Embarrass yourself. Show them what a real amateur sounds like." Maya stood alone in the center of the stage. The band leader looked at her. She nodded. The music started. This time it felt different. The air in the theater was charged, electric with anticipation. Maya closed her eyes. She forgot the cameras. She forgot the 3,000 people. She forgot Marcus Blackwell and his threats and his millions. She thought of the church on Sunday mornings. The sun streaming through stained glass. The sound of her own voice bouncing off the wooden pews. The feeling of freedom. She opened her mouth. The first notes were soft, tentative. Sometimes the mountain seems too high. Her tone was pure, clear as water. There was a raw honesty in it that cut through the polished, expensive atmosphere of the gala. The audience went still. She moved through the melody, gaining strength. Her voice grew louder, richer. It wasn't just a child's voice anymore. It was an instrument. Marcus stood in the shadows, arms crossed, waiting for the crack, waiting for the failure. The bridge approached. The music swelled. The key changed, modulating upward. But I will rise. She hit the E5. Clean. Strong. I will rise. She hit the G5. Effortless. The band built toward the climax. The moment of truth. The impossible note. Maya took a breath. She felt the note inside her before she sang it. She saw it in her mind. A shining silver frequency. 1046.5 hertz. She opened her throat. She didn't push. She didn't strain. She just released it. The note soared out of her. It was perfect. It wasn't the thin, digital whistle of the recording. It was full, resonant. It had life and breath and power behind it. It filled the theater, ringing off the walls, vibrating in the chests of everyone watching. She held it. For seconds. 5 seconds. 6 seconds. Marcus's mouth fell open. 7 seconds. 8 seconds. Then, just as the audience thought she was done, she did something impossible. She modulated up. From the C6, she slid seamlessly up to an E6, a note Marcus Blackwell had never even attempted in a studio, let alone live. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated joy. She brought it back down, landing perfectly on the tonic as the band crashed the final chord. Silence. 1 second. 2 seconds. Then the theater erupted. It wasn't just applause. It was a roar. People leaped to their feet. The judges were standing. The band members were clapping. Tears streamed down faces in the front row. Maya stood in the spotlight, breathing hard, her chest heaving. She looked at Marcus. He looked like he had been struck. He was pale, shaking, staring at her as if she were a ghost. The audience chanted her name now. Asterisk Maya. 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 Asterisk. She had done it. She had told the truth. She had proven him wrong. For a moment, standing there in the wash of applause, with the heat of the lights on her face, Maya felt safe. She felt victorious. She felt like the world had finally seen her. She didn't know yet that the battle was just beginning. She didn't see the man in the expensive suit moving quickly from the wings, pushing past security, his eyes fixed on her with predatory focus. She thought she had won. She was wrong. 20 minutes later, the applause had faded. The theater was emptying. Security had ushered Maya backstage, away from the cameras, away from the judges, away from the cheering crowd. They put her in a small, windowless dressing room. "Wait here," a guard had said. "Someone needs to talk to you." Maya sat on a folding chair, her legs dangling. Her mother had rushed in 5 minutes ago, still wearing her scrubs, breathless and crying, hugging Maya so hard it hurt. "Baby, I saw it," Denise whispered, smoothing Maya's braids. "I saw you on the phone. You were, oh God, Maya. You were incredible." For a moment, it felt like everything was going to be okay. They were together. Maya had won. The truth was out. Then the door opened. A man walked in. He was tall, wearing a charcoal suit that cost more than their apartment building. He carried a leather briefcase and had a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mrs. Johnson." "Maya." He extended a hand. "I'm Robert Sterling. I represent Mr. Blackwell." Denise stood up, pulling Maya close. "We don't want any trouble. We're just leaving." "Please sit down," Sterling said. His voice was smooth, calm, reasonable. He pulled up a chair. Nobody is in trouble. Quite the opposite. What happened tonight was unexpected. But Marcus is impressed. Truly. He looked at Maya. You have a remarkable gift, young lady. Maya didn't answer. She remembered Marcus's grip on her arm. She remembered the hatred in his eyes. Marcus feels terrible about the misunderstanding, Sterling continued. The stress of the performance, the technical issues. He realizes he may have been harsh. He wants to make it right. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a document. It was thick, stapled at the corner. He wants to offer you a scholarship, Sterling said. For your future. He slid the paper across the table. On top of it, he placed a check. Maya looked at the numbers. 5, 0, 0, 0, 0, $50,000. The room seemed to tilt. Denise gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. $50,000. That was rent for 3 years. That was the heating bill paid forever. That was new clothes, new shoes, food in the fridge every single day. That was college. That was freedom. This is for Maya's education, Sterling said, watching Denise's face. Any school she wants. Vocal training. Private lessons. Marcus wants to invest in her talent. Why? Denise asked, her voice shaking. After what happened? Because he sees potential, Sterling said smoothly. And because he wants to put this unfortunate incident behind us. For everyone's sake. He tapped the document. This is a standard agreement. It just says that we're settling any disputes amicably. It clarifies that tonight's events were a result of technical confusion and miscommunication. It includes a confidentiality clause which is standard in the industry. It protects everyone's privacy. He uncapped a heavy, silver pen and held it out. Sign here, Mrs. Johnson, and the check is yours. Tonight. Maya looked at her mother. Denise was staring at the check. Her eyes were wide, filled with a mixture of hope and terror. Maya knew what she was seeing. She was seeing a way out, a lifeline thrown into the drowning pool of their lives. For a moment, Maya felt a wave of relief. It was over. They had won. Not just the applause, but the prize. They could take the money. They could fix the heater. They could breathe. All they had to do was sign. Just a confidentiality clause? Denise asked, reaching for the paper. Standard language, Sterling assured her. Just agreeing not to discuss the specific details of the production or Mr. Blackwell's private rehearsals. Moving forward with positivity. Maya looked at the paper. The words were small and dense. Undersigned agrees to retract all public statements regarding. Admits that allegations of vocal enhancement were unfounded. Acknowledges that statements made were a result of juvenile confusion. Maya's heart stopped. Wait, she said. Sterling's eyes flicked to her. Yes, Maya? What does retract mean? She asked, pointing to the line. It means to withdraw, Sterling said, his smile tight. To clarify that you were mistaken. But I wasn't mistaken, Maya said. Maya, hush, her mother whispered, terrified the money would disappear. No, Mama. Look, Maya pointed. It says I admit I lied. It says I was confused. It says I have to tell everyone that Marcus really sang that note and I just didn't understand what I was hearing. She looked up at Sterling. You're paying us to lie, she said. The room went cold. Sterling sighed, a short, impatient sound. He leaned back, the mask of kindness slipping just a fraction. Maya, listen to me. This isn't about lying. It's about professional courtesy. It's about securing your future. He looked at Denise. Mrs. Johnson, let's be realistic. You're a home health aide. You have 2 other children. This money changes your lives. It changes Maya's life. Do you really want to throw that away because of pride? Denise looked at the check. Then she looked at Maya. She looked at the worn-out shoes on Maya's feet. She looked at the cheap thrift store blouse. $50,000, Denise whispered. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Baby, we could fix everything. Maya felt sick. She understood the temptation. She felt it in her own gut, the hunger for safety, for warmth, for an end to the struggle. But she also understood what the paper meant. If they signed Marcus won, he kept his Grammys, he kept his fame, he kept his lie, and Maya became the girl who made a mistake. The confused kid who didn't know what she was talking about. Her truth, the one thing she owned that was truly hers, would be sold for $50,000. And if we don't sign? Maya asked. Sterling's face hardened. He retrieved the pen. He picked up the check and held it between two fingers, like a dead leaf. If you don't sign, he said, his voice dropping to a flat, professional monotone, then Mr. Blackwell will have no choice but to protect his reputation legally. What does that mean? Denise asked, her voice trembling. It means he will sue you, Sterling said, for defamation, for slander, for breach of contract regarding the school's performance agreement. He will sue you, Mrs. Johnson. He will sue Eastside Elementary. He will sue the school district. He paused, letting the words land like blows. The school district has already been notified that if this isn't resolved tonight, the Blackwell Foundation will withdraw all funding. The instruments, the new piano, the music program, all of it, gone. He leaned forward. And you, Mrs. Johnson, a defamation lawsuit can take years. Legal fees are substantial. Even if you win, which you won't, against our team, you'll be bankrupt before the first hearing. He placed the check back on the table. So here is the choice. You sign this paper, take the scholarship, and go home heroes. Or you walk out that door, and by tomorrow morning, you are the family that destroyed your school's music program and got sued into oblivion. He looked at Maya, cold, calculating. The truth is expensive, kid. Can your mother afford it? The room was so quiet Maya could hear the hum of the overhead lights. Denise stared at the check. Her hands were shaking so bad the paper would have rattled if she touched it. Maya saw the calculation in her mother's eyes. The rent, the groceries, the heat, the years of struggle disappearing with one signature. Mama, Maya whispered. Denise looked up. Her eyes were wet, red-rimmed, full of fear and exhaustion. She looked at Sterling, then at the check, then at her daughter. It's a lot of money, baby, she said softly. It's everything. Sterling smiled. He uncapped the pen again. It's the smart choice, Mrs. Johnson. It's the only choice. He pushed the paper toward her. Denise reached for the pen. Maya felt her heart break. She understood. She didn't blame her mother. How could she? $50,000 to say she was confused. $50,000 to let a rich man keep his lie. It was a trade anyone in their building would make in a heartbeat. But then Maya thought about the note. Not the money. The music. She thought about the pure, perfect C6 she had sung on stage. She thought about how it felt to let the truth out of her body, clean and undeniable. She thought about the sound engineer who had risked his career to back her up. She thought about Miss Patterson telling her she had a gift from God. If she signed this, the gift became a lie. If she signed this, she wasn't Maya Johnson with the 1 in 10,000 ear. She was just another thing Marcus Blackwell had bought. Denise's fingers touched the pen. No, Maya said. It wasn't a shout. It was barely a whisper, but it stopped her mother's hand. Denise froze. Maya. No, Maya said again, louder this time. She stood up. Her legs were shaking, but she stood. She looked at Sterling. I won't sign it. Sterling's smile vanished instantly. Excuse me? I won't sign it, Maya said. She pointed at the paper. It says I lied. I didn't lie. He did. He's been lying for years. And now he wants to pay me to lie for him. Maya, Sterling said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming hard and sharp. Sit down. No, you are a child, Sterling snapped. You don't understand how the world works. You don't understand what you are doing to your family. I understand, Maya said. She looked at her mother. Mama, if we sign this, he owns us. He owns my voice. He owns the truth. Denise looked at her daughter. She saw the thrift store blouse. She saw the scuffed shoes. But she also saw something else. She saw the girl who stood on a stage in front of 5 million people and refused to be small. She saw dignity. Denise pulled her hand back from the pen. Mrs. Johnson, Sterling warned, sensing the shift. Don't be foolish. Think about your other children. Think about the lawsuit. I am thinking, Denise said. Her voice was quiet, but steady. She stood up next to Maya. She put her hand on Maya's shoulder. My daughter told the truth, Denise said. Sterling stared at them. His face turned a mottled, angry red. You're making a mistake, he hissed. A massive, life-ruining mistake. Maybe, Denise said. But we're not signing. Sterling stood up. He snatched the check off the table. He shoved the papers back into his briefcase. The smooth, corporate mask was gone completely now. He looked at them with pure contempt. Fine, he spat. Have it your way. He walked to the door, then turned back, his hand on the knob. You think you won tonight? He said, sneering. You think because people clapped, you're safe? Tomorrow morning, the lawsuits get filed. Tomorrow morning, the funding gets pulled from your school. Tomorrow morning, every news outlet in the country will hear about your mother's credit history, your eviction notices, everything. He looked at Maya. You wanted to be famous, kid? Congratulations. You're about to be the most hated girl in America. He slammed the door. The sound echoed in the small room. Maya and Denise stood there in the silence. The check was gone. The $50,000 was gone. The safety was gone. Denise sank back into her chair and put her face in her hands. Mama, Maya whispered. She was terrified. She had just cost them everything. Denise looked up. Tears were streaming down her face, but she was smiling. A weak, wobbly smile. I'm okay, baby, she said. She pulled Maya into a hug, squeezing her tight. I'm okay. We're okay. I'm sorry. Maya sobbed into her mother's scrubs. I'm so sorry. Don't be, Denise said fiercely. Don't you ever be sorry for telling the truth. We're poor, Maya. We've always been poor, but we aren't liars. She pulled back and looked Maya in the eye. Let him sue us, Denise said. Let him try. They walked out of the dressing room together. The hallway was empty. The janitors were sweeping up confetti in the distance. The magic of the night was gone, replaced by the cold reality of what was coming. Maya held her mother's hand tight. She knew Sterling wasn't bluffing. She knew the morning would bring a storm unlike anything they had ever seen. But as they pushed open the heavy stage door and stepped out into the cool night air, Maya realized something. She wasn't afraid of the dark anymore, because she knew exactly what she sounded like. And for the first time in her life, she knew that was enough. She didn't know that the sound engineer was already tweeting. She didn't know that 3 other session singers were drafting statements. She didn't know that a lawyer in New York, one who hated bullies, was watching the livestream replay and picking up his phone. She just knew she hadn't signed. She had kept her voice. The storm broke before sunrise. Maya woke up to her mother crying in the kitchen. Not the soft, tired crying of a long shift, but the jagged, panicked sobs of someone watching their life burn down. Their address was on Twitter. Their phone number was on Facebook. Someone had posted photos of their apartment building with the caption, *, this is where the ungrateful brat lives. Let's go say hi. *. The threats were visceral, ugly. People calling Maya a liar, a thief, a diversity hire who ruined a legend's career. They called her mother names that made Maya's stomach turn. They said they were coming. At 8 a.m., the school principal called. He sounded like he hadn't slept either. Mrs. Johnson, I'm so sorry, he said, his voice tinny through the cheap speakerphone. But the district is concerned with the threats and the potential lawsuit from the Blackwell Foundation. They think it's best if Maya stays home, for her safety, and the safety of the other students. You're suspending her? Denise asked, her voice rising. For telling the truth? It's not a suspension, the principal lied. It's an administrative leave, until things settle. Maya sat at the kitchen table, staring at her hands. She felt small again, smaller than she had felt on stage. She had won, hadn't she? The audience had cheered. The judges had stood up. So why did it feel like she was losing? But while Maya's world was shrinking, Marcus Blackwell's was exploding. It started with the sound engineer. His tweet, posted at 2 a.m., had gone viral instantly. I was fired for telling the truth. Marcus Blackwell hasn't sung a C6 live since 2014. Here are the Pro Tools session logs. He attached screenshots, timestamps, frequency analysis, proof. At 9 a.m., Sophia Mitchell, the session singer Maya had named, posted a video. She sat in her living room holding a contract. "I signed an NDA 8 years ago," she said, her voice shaking but clear. "I was paid $2,000 to record the high notes for the Rise Above album. I was told my name would never appear. I was told I was a ghost." She looked at the camera. "I'm done being a ghost. Maya is right. That's my voice." At 10 a.m., Variety broke the story. Grammy committee launches formal investigation into Blackwell discography. At 11 a.m., Nike issued a statement. "We are suspending our partnership with Marcus Blackwell pending a full review of these allegations." At noon, the dam broke. Another session singer came forward. Then a producer. Then a former band member. Stories poured out like oil from a ruptured tanker. Stories of intimidation, of stolen credit, of careers crushed because they threatened the Blackwell brand. It wasn't just about a note anymore. It was about a system. A machine built to protect one man's ego at the expense of everyone else's talent. And the girl who broke the machine was sitting in her pajamas in the East Side projects, afraid to look out the window. But help was coming. At 1 p.m., a car pulled up to their building. Not a police car. A sleek, black sedan. A woman stepped out. She wore a suit sharper than Sterling's, but her face was kind. She walked past the few reporters camped on the sidewalk, ignored their questions, and knocked on apartment 4B. "Mrs. Johnson?" she said when Denise opened the door on the chain. "My name is Sarah Thorne. I'm a civil rights attorney. I watched the gala last night." She held up a card. "I'm not here to take your money," she said. "I'm here to make sure you keep it, and to make sure Marcus Blackwell pays for every threat his lawyer made." Denise unhooked the chain. By 3 p.m., the narrative had flipped. Sarah Thorne held a press conference on the sidewalk outside their building. She didn't look like a victim's lawyer. She looked like a predator. "Let me be clear," she told the cameras. "If the Blackwell Foundation withdraws 1 cent of funding from Eastside Elementary, we will sue for retaliatory breach of contract. If Marcus Blackwell files a defamation suit, we will countersue for fraud, emotional distress, and public endangerment of a minor." She looked directly into the lens. "And to Mr. Sterling? If you contact my clients again without going through me, I will have you disbarred before lunch." The threats stopped. The school district called back. Maya was welcome to return immediately. The GoFundMe page someone had started for Maya's education hit $100,000. Then 200. But the real justice came 2 days later. Marcus Blackwell tried to save himself. He announced a live stream. "The Truth," he called it. He sat in his mansion, looking tired and humble, wearing a simple t-shirt. No production. No band. Just him and a piano. "I want to apologize," he said, his eyes wet. "I got lost. The pressure, the expectations. I used tools I shouldn't have. But the voice is still mine. The music is still mine." He took a breath. "I want to sing for you. For real this time." He started to play Rise Above. 5 million people watched. The same number as the gala. He sang the verse. It was thin, shaky. Without the studio magic, without the backing tracks, his voice was average. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't legendary. Then he reached the bridge. The chat fell silent. He climbed the scale. He strained. His neck veins bulged. He reached for the high note, the note Maya had hit with effortless grace. He opened his mouth. A squeak came out. A dry, pathetic rasp that broke instantly into a cough. He tried again. Nothing. Just air and desperation. He stopped playing. He sat there, hands on the keys, head bowed, while the silence stretched on and on. The stream cut to black. It was over. The fallout was absolute. His label dropped him the next day. The Grammys announced they were revoking his awards for Best Vocal Performance, citing fraudulent representation. His upcoming tour was canceled. His foundation was placed under independent audit. The mansion was listed for sale a month later. Maya watched it all from her living room. She watched the man who had terrified her, who had threatened to destroy her family, shrink until he was nothing but a cautionary tale. She didn't feel triumphant. She didn't feel happy exactly. She felt clean. She thought about the digital shimmer of the fake note. She thought about the lies he had told for 20 years. She thought about how heavy those lies must have been, how much energy it took to carry them every single day. The truth was lighter. It was harder, yes, cost more up front. But once you paid for it, it was yours forever. A week later, a package arrived at their apartment. It was heavy. Inside was a framed platinum record, one of Marcus's, but taped to the glass was a note, handwritten on stationery from the Recording Academy. To Maya, for reminding us what real music sounds like. Keep singing. The committee. Maya hung it on the wall above the radiator that didn't work. It looked out of place in the small, peeling room. But when the sun hit it just right, it shined brighter than anything else in the house. She looked at her mother. Denise was sleeping on the couch, finally resting. The phone wasn't ringing. The threats were gone. Maya went to her room. She picked up her phone with the cracked screen. She opened the voice memo app. She took a breath, a singer's breath, and she began to record. Not for Marcus, not for the cameras, not for the money, for herself. 6 months later, the lawsuit was officially dismissed with prejudice. Marcus Blackwell's lawyers didn't even show up to the final hearing. They had bigger problems: bankruptcy filings, class action suits from ticket holders, fraud charges from the state attorney general. The empire of lies had crumbled completely. Maya stood on the courthouse steps, holding Sarah Thorne's hand. Her mother stood on the other side, looking younger than she had in years. The GoFundMe money had fixed the heater. It had bought new clothes. It had started a college fund. But more importantly, it had bought them peace. A reporter thrust a microphone toward Maya. "How does it feel?" he asked. "To know you won?" Maya thought about it. She thought about the moment on stage when she asked for the track to be turned off. She thought about the fear in her mother's eyes when Sterling offered the check. She thought about the millions of people who had watched her refuse to be small. "It doesn't feel like winning," Maya said softly. "It just feels like waking up." She looked directly into the camera. "He told me to fail quietly," she said. "He told me my voice didn't matter because he was powerful and I was nobody. But power doesn't make things true. And money doesn't make things real." She paused. "Your truth matters more than their comfort. Even if your voice shakes, even if you're small, even if they tell you to sit down and be quiet." She smiled. A real smile. Especially then. The screen fades to black. But the question remains. Maya had 10 seconds to decide. 10 seconds between being safe with $50,000 and being destroyed by a millionaire's lawyers. 10 seconds where nobody would have blamed her for signing that paper. Most people would have signed. Most people would have taken the money, fixed the heater, and let the lie continue. It's safer. It's easier. It's what the world expects us to do. But courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being terrified and speaking anyway. So ask yourself, if you were in that room, if the check was on the table and the threat was in the air, would you have stood up? Or would you have signed? Be honest. We all like to think we're Maya, but most of us stay silent to stay safe. If you've ever been told to fail quietly, if you've ever had to swallow your truth to protect someone else's lie, share your story in the comments. Let's remind each other that we aren't alone. And if this story reminded you that the truth is worth the cost, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because the world doesn't need more people who fail quietly. It needs more people who sing.